Would you do it again? Take everything away? She nodded, in a heartbeat. But I'd do one thing differently. What's that? I wouldn't have waited 5 years. She laughed. Mom, you're savage. No, I'm a parent. There's a difference. Last week was my birthday. I came downstairs to find the dining room transformed. Balloons, flowers, a cake that must have cost a fortune. But what stopped me cold was the banner across the wall. Happy birthday to our real mom. Brandon and Melissa stood there grinning. Richard had his arm around both of them. We know it's cheesy, Brandon said. But accurate, Melissa added. Because real isn't about biology, they said in unison, clearly practiced. It's about who shows up, Brandon continued. Who stays up all night when you're sick, Melissa added. Who fights for you? Who teaches you to drive even though you're a terrible driver? Hey, Brandon protested, breaking script. Who loves you enough to demand respect? Melissa finished. And who loves you even when you don't deserve it? Richard added, pulling me into their group hug. As I stood there, surrounded by my family, my real family, I thought about Denise. She'd reached out last year, wanting to meet the kids. They'd refused. We already have a mom, Brandon had said simply. But she's your biological mother, Denise had insisted over the phone. So? Melissa had taken the phone. Biology doesn't make you a parent. Showing up does. And you didn't. It was harsh, maybe unfair. Denise had her reasons for leaving, mental health issues she's since addressed. But the kids had made their choice, just like they'd made their choice that night 3 years ago when faced with losing me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they'd called my bluff, if they'd chosen their pride over my love, if Richard had backed them up instead of finally seeing the damage he'd enabled. But then Brandon calls from college, stressed about exams, asking for my advice, not his father's, mine. Or Melissa texts at midnight with boy drama, knowing I'll be awake, knowing I'll listen without judgment. Or Richard reaches for my hand during a movie, whispering thank you for no reason, except he remembers what he almost lost. And I know it worked out exactly as it should have, because real love, the kind that makes a family, isn't about accepting whatever you're given. It's about demanding what you deserve. It's about setting boundaries and enforcing them, even when it breaks your heart. It's about loving someone enough to risk losing them rather than accepting less than their full respect. The kids know that now. They learned it the hard way, over 3 days of dry cereal and empty bedrooms. 3 days of understanding what only biological parents really meant. 3 days of choosing between their pride and their mom. They chose right, eventually. But I'd made my choice 5 years earlier, the day I decided to love 2 broken children who weren't mine. And I'd make it again today, tomorrow, and every day after. Because that's what real parents do. They choose their children, again and again, even when those children don't choose them back. Until one day, if you're lucky and strong enough to demand it, they do. And then, you're not a step-parent anymore. You're not a biological parent. You're not their father's wife. You're just mom. And that's everything.